So these are the TEKS that are stated in the teacher's planning guides for the week. So throughout the week, obviously they'll have to target these. Today for our lesson, I'm going to focus on 1.9a because we're actually going to talk about what a fable is. 1.8d, a description of the setting. And then 1.10c, discussing with adult assistance the author's use of print and graphic features to achieve specific purposes. The text I chose for this lesson is The Tortoise and the Hare. It's retold, obviously, as an Aesop's fable. This is part of the Fountas and Pinnell literacy. It is end of first, beginning of second, as far as grade level equivalent. If you're familiar with guided reading levels, level J. It is part of their classic tales. They have several series within their book sets, and I chose it because it is one that students may be familiar with. It has a stated moral lesson at the end. It's got great illustrations and some cool print and graphic features that we can talk about in relation to the author's purpose. So in thinking through this lesson, I've got my TEKS, I've got my text that I'm going to project underneath the document camera. I've got a sample Fables anchor chart, which is kind of the information I want to include. I'll pick the most important parts of that. And then I've got a Post-it poster for us to describe the setting of The Tortoise and the Hare. Each child will have a Post-it. So my plan is that we will introduce what a fable is. We'll start creating an anchor chart today. And then I'll tell them that we're going to start reading a fable, and we'll look for characteristics of the fable as we pay attention to the setting. So we'll read pages 1 to 9 of The Tortoise and the Hare together underneath the document camera. And then afterwards, my plan is to give each student a Post-it, and they can either draw a picture or use words to best describe the setting, and then we'll put it on our Post-it poster. Hopefully this lesson will take about 15 minutes. And at the conclusion, we'll go back, review what we learned so far about fables, and then we'll pick up where we left off the next day. So for a quick reflection on our Fables lesson today from first grade, I called the students to the carpet. I told them that we were going to read a really cool book, but before we did, I wanted to tell them a little bit more information about a special kind of fiction that's called a fable. So from there, we had our discussion and created our anchor chart. I had an original plan of what I wanted the anchor chart to kind of look like or contain in the planning phase of the lesson. The information's the same, that just the layout's a little bit different. So I will put a picture of that in the video so that you can all see what the actual anchor chart that we created together ended up looking like. After we did that, I told them that we were then going to read part of the story. We didn't have time to read the whole story today, but we were going to read all the way up to page 9. We then looked at the cover, read the title, made predictions, read the title with the information from the illustration, made further predictions. I was proud of them for inferring that a hare is a rabbit. A lot of them didn't know that, but could infer that based on the information from that illustration on the cover. I then told them that we were going to read it together, and letting them take turns. I actually had some kids come up to read. Some parts we read together. Some we had this part of the class read while others over here read. So I varied the kind of that engagement structure a little bit. Their reading jobs were to read to find out what happened with the tortoise and the hare, and they had to be on the lookout for any characteristics of fables that they were able to locate. After we read to page 9, we then talked about what had happened in the story, and I asked for characteristic evidence. They were very quick to understand that they could see where the animals were acting like people, which was one of the characteristics that we discussed when creating our anchor chart. Another student said on the cover, it says retold by, it doesn't say by next to the author's name. And we had to go back and look at it again, and that student was absolutely correct. So I'll let you see that here. It says retold by Anne Wheel. So what a great thing, not only to notice, but to hold on to and share at the end. My original plan was to go over the characteristics of a fable as well as have them describe the setting. Because we needed a little bit more support with the characteristics of a fable, we didn't get to the description of the setting with the post-it poster, which is fine because the classroom teacher is just going to pick up from that part of the lesson tomorrow. So all in all, a great introduction to fables, and I'm excited to hear more about how the lesson concludes. So when I was sketching out the lesson, this was my anchor chart sketch that I created to kind of help me think about all the information I wanted to include in the anchor chart with my first grade class. As I was introducing fables to them, I felt like this was a little bit too wordy, maybe a little bit too much information right off the bat. So we changed it a little bit. Key information's still there, but I'm about to show you what the anchor chart looked like at the conclusion of our first day of the lesson. So this is what our Fables anchor chart actually ended up looking like when I made it with the class of students. Since this was just day one of the lesson, I'm going to go ahead and link the week-long plan for teaching Fables in the description of the video as well.